I'm Emily Mashak, and you are listening to Tuned Into NoCo, the public affairs show that lets you know what matters in NoCo. I'm sitting down today with Tom Gonzales, the public health director for Larimer County, and we are going to be talking about the new restaurant inspection ratings that were just enacted. So thank you for being here today, Tom.
Thanks for having me, Emily.
Of course. Now, before we get into the new rating system, let's talk about the old one. For those who don't know, what was it?
Yeah, it was a 5-tier system that ranked the inspection based upon a scoring system. I always like to say it's like a golf game. The more points, the more violations, the higher risk for foodborne illness. And the 5 tiers went from excellent to inadequate. Inadequate being a higher score, more risk for foodborne illness, more issues. Excellent, of course, being less issues for foodborne illness. And so there were 5. There was excellent, good, fair, marginal, or inadequate.
Mm-hmm. Now, why wasn't this system working for you guys?
Yeah, it was working. We've been using that since the 90s. I think it was through legislation a couple years ago with the industry, looking at what's the best system for the industry, the consumer, and the health department. And it's really been a combination of work for the last 2 years with those parties to sit down and try to put the best system together, and knowing that there's not a perfect system, but we heard from the consumer. The consumer says, is it safe to eat there or not? And then sometimes they get confused. Well, is good okay? What does fair mean? When in their mind, is it safe or not? And our goal at the health department is to have all of our restaurants and grocery stores and school cafeterias safe for the consumer to eat.
Mm-hmm. Now, let's get into the new system. How does this work? And I think you kind of mentioned that it was chosen for its clarity, but if you could just kind of elaborate more on why this is the one you went with.
Yeah, I think the clarity is the key. It's really now a 3-tier system. And the primary is that you pass, but there's a reinspection, and then their closure. So really, working with the industry, we talk about there's conditions there exist that if you don't have that risk for foodborne illness, or it's a less risk, they pass. We say, hey, they meet a minimum standard. But if they had some issues, some critical violations that need to be corrected, we need to come back and verify those are been corrected, then that's the reinspection. And if you got conditions where it's unsafe, that's a closure. And again, it's based on those point values and the severity of the violation. So some violations are less risky than others, such as improper temperature control. Those are very important because that's where bacteria can grow. Those are weighted more than such as cleanliness, which is not near as a risk. So again, it's really pass, reinspect, or closure.
Right. Now, I saw we look at the food inspections every week here at Town Square Media, and a few of them did need reinspection. Is this something that people should be worried about? I know a lot of people get kind of wary about going to those places when they see it didn't pass right away.
Yeah, it does say there were some conditions there, and the goal at the health department is to get behavior change and make sure there's good education so the owner, a food worker, manager understands what those issues are. So yeah, when there's you need to reinspect, you want to then look, well, what happened at the reinspect? And our goal is that it passes. So we want to see less reinspections, and definitely we don't want to see a reinspection on a reinspection, if that makes sense, because then that means those violations were not corrected when we came back for that second visit.
Right. If that did happen, would that lead to a closure, or would you continue to reinspect?
In this new state law, if you third reinspect leads to a closure.
Okay. How often are restaurants inspected?
It depends on risk. So we use what we call a risk formula. So the more complex the menu is, there is more risk inherent versus a less, like maybe an ice cream stand versus a full-blown restaurant where you cook and cool and have multiple steps for the menu for the food product. So it based on that, but a minimum of 2 times a year for most of your higher risk. Now, if we have places that have those reinspects or they have ongoing violations and issues, they can be inspected 4 times a year. So it's based on risk of 4, 2, or 1. one time a year would be our very low risk, more grocery stores that are low risk. They don't handle many open foods.
I see. Okay, that makes sense. Is the county involved with restaurants in other ways, or is it primarily inspections?
Yeah, one of the items we work with the industry is we're trying to build a technical advisory group. We've met a couple times, but we'd really like to build a more robust group where we're getting representation from the industry to give us feedback on policies and procedures, or maybe something that's not working, or maybe our approach. So we really want to hear from them. So we're going to be continuing that in 2020. It's going to be one of our goals, to build that group, to really hear from the industry. And then two, we work very closely with CSU Extension on providing food handler training and that manager's training that's required now to make sure that we're getting good education out there, especially for new food workers, that they understand what are those critical steps to prevent foodborne illness.
Right. If there are new food workers listening out there, what are obviously there's a whole list, but what are the main things they should know that should not be happening in a restaurant?
Well, the first thing when you walk in a restaurant, wash your hands. We certainly know we can spread germs, viruses, and bacteria through dirty hands. So washing hands, and then making sure you're looking at the procedures there on temperature control. So foods need to be cold, below 41 degrees, or hot above 135 degrees. So we want to make sure we're not in that danger zone. So temperature control and multiple food steps, and then not handling ready-to-eat foods such as bread and lunch meats with your bare hands. We want to make sure you're wearing gloves or using tongs or other utensils. So those are the big ones. And then I cannot forget, my staff would be amiss of me if I forgot, never work while you're sick. Certainly, if you've got a fever or other symptoms, you can spread that disease through food very easily. So food handlers that are ill should not be in the kitchen.
Yes, very important, especially during flu season, I'm sure.
Absolutely, yes.
If people would like to see restaurant ratings and inspection updates and things like that, where can they go?
The Larimer.org/health.
/health?
Yes.
All right, good to know. Now, as the public health director, what would you like people to know going into 2020, whether that's restaurant related or not?
Well, I'd add that we've in the last year been working on a strategic plan and looking at where are our focus priority areas over the next 3 to 5 years. And we're really identified those. The first one being prepared for public health emergencies and emerging threats. You're hearing about the coronavirus, measles outbreak throughout the United States. So we're going to make sure our staff are properly trained. They know what their role is. We got proper procedures. So if, probably when something does hit Larimer County, we're prepared to respond and protect our county. And also we've got to deal with the natural disasters of our fires and floods that we've experienced, unfortunately, in Larimer County, that we're able to respond and recover in a timely manner. So that's going to be one of our big focus areas. And also looking at investing in our systems and processes. Where can we improve in efficiency? Where can we give better tools for our public health professionals to do the work out in the community? So we're really going to look at that and invest in ourselves to make sure we're providing a good product to the citizens of Larimer County.
Mm-hmm. Well, that is great to hear. I really appreciate that, Tom, and thank you for coming in and explaining this new system to me. Sounds like a good one. I know where to eat.
Well, thank you.
Again, that was Tom Gonzales, the Public Health Director for Larimer County, in to talk about the new retail food establishment inspection ratings. If you would like to find more information about that or see which restaurants passed, needed a reinspection, or closed, check in with our station apps or websites every week.